Hi, this is Walter from Zimstones by Walter, and today I'm going to show you how I am making what I'm calling an autumn album. And in order to make it, we're using the Autumn Memories Journal Kit and Autumn Memories Butterfly cards from the Gingerbread Prints. You can find these kits on the Gingerbread Prints Ko-fi site. I'll provide a link to it in the video information. This is just a few of the pages that I've printed out, but they're gorgeous. This one happens to be probably one of my favorites, which is why I'm going to feature it prominently. I'm drawn to this picture of this woman with, just lots of florals and some postcard images and stamp images. It's just gorgeous. I absolutely love it. So there's lots of great pages in the kit. There's lots of bright florals. There are some really gorgeous papers, some bright, some a little more muted. I think this album's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be really pretty once it's done. And it's not a traditional journal size. This is actually going to be a little bit on the bigger size. What we're going to use for the base before we add in all of the extra pages and everything is you're going to need to start one 8.5 by 11 I'm using craft colored cardstock. I'm using 110 pound, so it's sturdier. And then I have two 8.5 by 11 pieces that are scored at from this side and from this side at 5.5 inches, then another score line at 7 inches, and then this is what's going to attach to the base. It's going to be large. It's going to be, the 11 inches wide and 8.5 inches tall. But I'm doing that on purpose because I want it to look like an old album full of pictures and pages and lots of great memories. So let's get started. Okay, to get started, we're going to use the 8.5 by 11 laid landscape without any score lines on it and have that laying down. I'm now going to go ahead and just fold down on those score lines with my bone folder. Move that out of the way to get some nice crisp folds. Something you may want to do is just do it the other way as well to start to get that fold used to going either way for when you have it open. So there's that one. Then we also have the next one. That next one is what's going to form the spine on the side for each cover. I saw something similar to this, not exactly like this, but similar on Facebook the other day. And I thought that looks like it could be a lot of fun to make. So let's give that a try. So those are nicely in place, and that looks good. Now let's get these folded. Okay, and to give you just a general idea of how this is going to look, it's going to be that you attach these here, and if I measured right, which I hope I did, and I think I did, those will meet up right in the middle, and these will be the covers of the journal. And so I'm going to go ahead and get those attached, and we're going to use double-sided tape and some glue to get those attached. So I will show you how I do that. Okay, so I have the side that's going to go down onto the onto the base page there. And I'm just going to get some double-sided tape on there first. I like to use both just to make sure it's a nice strong bond. Time to grab a new one. I always keep them right by my side. Get them right up against there. That's good. Come across this way. Now I'm going to grab my glue and just get some glue on there as well. And I use the glue in addition to the tape, once again for the securing it to make sure that it's really nicely held down there. But also too, because with the glue, it gives a little maneuverability once you initially put it down, so that if you want to move it around a bit, you have a little chance to do that before it dries. Okay, so that's the first side. Going to grab this. For getting this on there, I'm going to keep the spine folded in, and I know where that is going to align there. That looks good, and that looks good. Press that down into place. And now I'm going to repeat it and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so there we have it. You're going to open those are your front covers. You'll open them. You have your spines there, but then also you have your sides, and you have your back of the book. And there is a space there between the two. Because I am using 8.5 by 11, it wouldn't fit all the way over. You can leave that if you'd like. I prefer to fill it in just to make sure that it's going to look, be solid for anything that you put over that. And that space I had measured would be 3 inches. It looks like I'm just a hair off, so I'm going to give this a haircut and then go ahead and get that inserted down onto the back. Okay, so I have my glue and my tape down. I made sure I got some glue right up against the edges of those other sides. Just want to make sure that everything fits as nice as can be. And then you can just line that up. And there we go. And you don't have to worry. No one is going to see this anyways, because you are going to have something in the back, going over it. You'll have paper going over it, so no one will see the seams or anything. No one will know that that little piece is even hiding there. So it's really just for me a structural thing, making sure that everything's going to be flush and that there's no chance of something separating because of space between the back of this paper and the front side. So that looks good. So now is the time when you can start to decide how you want to structure the inside of the album. So for example, I know I'm going to have my favorite picture prominently displayed there going across the back. So that's what I'm going to have there. But there are other things that you can do in regards to adding in flaps, like as parts to display different images, kind of like in a folio. So you can have flaps coming up from here. You can have a flap coming off of the side. If you'd like to do that, I think what I'm going to do is have on one side a flap coming off the side, but then I'm going to have over here a flap coming up from the bottom and a flap coming down from the top. So you can just start to build those things in. You can decorate your spines, and I'll walk you through how I'm choosing to do it. But you may have some thoughts as you build yours, and you'll want to make it your own. And that's absolutely the way to do it, because this is all about, the creative process is all about what you might enjoy or thinking about what others might enjoy. So let's get started on that. I'm actually going to start on the outside and decorate my front cover and my back cover and the sides first before moving into the inside. That's just how I prefer to do it. And there are these green flowered papers in the kit. They print out beautifully. What I love about them is there's a little bit of crackle on this one, and there's some fading as if like tape or something was maybe pulled away on this one. They're gorgeous papers. And I love the colors also. So these are the ones I'm going to use for my front and back covers. And so what I always like to do is I don't like to have the white borders there when after you print them out. And so they're really easy to get rid of. You just go ahead and trim them. So I always start with the horizontal sides first and get those trimmed down. And if there's a little bit there, that's not a big deal because I typically kind of go back with some ink, distress ink, to add in some more like shading and everything. So not a big deal if that's the case. So I'm going to get my sides cut off. And I'll be back to show you how they look after that's done. Okay, so those are trimmed, and I know which ones I want on the front and which one I want on the back. So I'm going to start with the back, and I'm going to get this on there. And it's simply going to be what I've been doing all along, which is to go ahead and put some double-sided tape and then some glue. And then I will center that and get that stuck down. And once I do that, I'll show you how I'll take some ink and just kind of distress it a bit more. Okay, so I have that paper adhered down to the back side. And now I'm going to use some old paper distress ink from Tim Holtz to go ahead and add in and blend in those white sides and just make the back look whole. So it's simply just taking a brush and just going along, adding that in. The nice thing is it's also pressing down the paper more. So it's just a nice way to get that pressed down, but also to add in some nice blended color so that you don't see the white lines on the side. And also to add some additional age. I am someone who really enjoys making things look vintage, making them look older. I think it's a lot of fun. I love doing it with cards. I like to make a lot of vintage type cards. And also make sure that you're getting some up on the craft colored cardstock on the back as well. Don't worry about if you have any on your mat because we're going to be covering up the other side anyways. And the other nice thing is that, as you can see, is it adds a little bit of darkness around the edges as well. Which is a cool effect because I'm not going to add anything additional on the inside part of the paper. So it's just going to give the edges that little bit of a darker look as well. A little bit of shading there. There is the back cover. I like the way it looks. I love that little bit of darkness going around the edges. That is really, really pretty. I think I am going to add just a bit more over on this side to that craft cardstock area, just because I want that to blend in just a little bit more. I might do the same over on this side too, just to get it on that craft cardstock. And of course, if it gets on the other, no big deal. It's just going to add some additional shading to it. I like the way that looks. I was actually thinking that it would be kind of a cool look to have something else over the flowered paper. Something ornamental, something just to, but not too thick since this is the back and you don't want it to like, cause it imbalance or anything like that. So I could easily do some leaves, or I could also just take a stamp of like some old writing and stamp that on the back. And since this is the back cover, I think I'm going to do the writing. So I'm going to get that stamp and I'm going to get it onto here and I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so I went ahead and stamped that in. I used this vintage photo distress ink. I wanted it light. You can see it. You can't necessarily read all of what it says. If you'd like to be able to read all that it says, by all means, you can go ahead and do that. But I stamped it a little lighter, just to get the look that I had wanted. And while I was doing it, I did use a rag that I had tapped onto the ink, and I went ahead and just pressed down as well. So I did add a little bit of grunge, even though I said I wasn't going to, but I do like the way that looks. So that back cover's done. I still may come back and add something like some leaves or something. But for right now, that's something that can easily be done later. For right now, the structure is there and I have that in place and I'm happy with it. So now we're going to move on to our front covers. And for this, you're basically going to need a half a sheet of the 8.5 by 11 cut in half. We know this is a little smaller because we trimmed away that little bit of white. So you can cut that and add that right on like that. But another idea that you can do, which I think is a lot of fun and definitely adds some character to the overall look, is I have some dies that are deckled edge. And I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut out 2 deckled edge pieces and put those on. I think that's the way I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to use my die cutting machine, get those cut out, and I will show you that when I'm done. Okay, I have those 2 panels cut out, and as you can see, we'll go ahead and get those affixed on there. And I'll also go ahead and add some ink on there as well to kind of make it look a little bit older. But I think that's a nice look. I think that's going to look really good. And then later on, once this is done, in order to keep it closed, I am going to take a little screw that I'll put up from the other side. And it's going to have, you screw the top on that has like, I forget what they call them now. But that way it'll have something, a metal piece over here, and I will get some twine coming from this side that will loop around to go ahead and keep that closed. Okay, so my front pieces are on, and I haven't added in the ink around the edges yet. When I was telling you about to keep it closed, it's called a button stud. And what it is I'll poke a hole, and I will put this screw up from the other side. It's flat, so we'll be able to cover it up. And then you screw that onto the front and it will sit there, and we can have some twine coming from over there to loop around it to help keep it closed. And before I start decorating the inside of the journal, I think it would actually be a good idea to get the button stud in place. So it's really easy to do. I start by taking kind of like one of these poker tools, and I decide where I'm going to want it, which I will, that's 8.5. So I'll probably want it to be in the center, right around 4 1/4. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but I'll want a little bit of, I'm going to move this up so you can see it. I'll want a little bit of space for that twine to come over to keep it closed. So I don't want to go exactly in the center, but I think right about there looks pretty good. So I'm just going to poke that through. And don't worry if it wrinkles a bit, because you're going for a vintage, I'm going for a vintage look, so I'm not worried about it. Once you get that poked through, you only have to do it that one time. Then from this side, you don't have to worry about this hole or that wrinkle there because that will be covered up. You know, the little poke through mark, because the back of the screw and will cover that up, and there'll be paper over it anyway. So now we're just going to push that through. Then take your front part of that and start to screw it on. And then I have a little, what I call my little craft screwdriver that comes with these little heads. I don't even need the screwdriver part to do this. I just hold on to the front part of the stud, use this little tool and twist until it's tight. And that's it. That's going to be what fastens the front of the journal together. I chose a bronze looking one that looks, you know, a little bit older. And I think that looks really nice. So I'm now going to just go ahead and take some of that old paper ink, maybe also a little bit of some tans, and just blend in the cover a bit, and then decide what I'm going to do for my sides. Okay, so I went ahead and distressed the edges. I really love that look. You can just see now, that's the undistressed natural craft card color. There it is with the distress ink on there. It just darkens it. I just love how it leaves little marks and really ages it and makes it look old. Another thing that I'm going to do, now that this is all put together, is I want to distress the edges to make them look old as well. And that's really easy to do. There's tools that you can buy that will do it for you. If that's what you choose, that's great. But I also just do it on my own with a plastic butter knife. And all you have to do is run it along the edge, back and forth. And what that's going to do is just kind of scrunch up those edges of the paper and make them look a little, not torn, but definitely worn. Another thing you can do is just go back and forth like this. And you can see that what effect it does. Again, not torn, just worn. And I love that look because it definitely ages, makes it look older, and not so perfect. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go around all the edges of the frame of the album, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've gone around all of the edges, and just look at that detail that you can get. Just, you know, that worn look. I think it's beautiful. And then to accentuate it, I'm going to take some Tim Holtz Distress Ink Vintage Photo, and I'm just going to run that around all of the edges. And what that's going to do is just further give it that that aged look. The paper naturally getting dark from oxidation and aging. And so just going to run that around. And it just helps make it pop, and just adds another layer of detail, and also helps to add some dimension to the look by kind of making it darker and setting it off. And if you want to add some right onto the paper, by all means you can do that. Whatever you'd like to do. This is your creative world. It's your creation, and you can bring it wherever you'd like. You don't want to do this, that's fine. Okay, so there's all of those edges. Now, I also want to run it along the edge of the sides. And I'll show you what I'm going to do with the sides once this is done. So that's done. And you can see that it just makes it pop even a little bit more. And so now for the sides, I know that each of these spines are 1.5 inches wide. And so I had some scrap copper paper. And so I went ahead and cut some 1-inch strips. And I'm just going to adhere those onto the side. And that will be all I'm going to do for the side. I may go ahead and add, I think I will add just a little bit of a darker distressing on those sides. And so I'm going to use the vintage paper ink for that. Get my brush and just brush some on. Most of it's going to be covered up, but focus mainly on the edges that will be seen, just to add that grunge on there. And that's just, you know, another little extra detail. Don't have to do it if you don't want to. I happen to like the look, and so I would like it on mine. And it doesn't have to be a lot. I think that's perfect. So I'm going to use the double-sided tape and some glue and get those glued into place. All right, the outside of our album is now done. We have those copper strips on either side. I think they're a nice touch. Copper to me is, you know, very fall color. And it just, like, you know, a little bit of metal look on the spines. And we may do more decoration after this is put together. Can always do more to the outside then. But that base structure of the outside is now completed, and you can see what this album is really going to look like. And you know, the ideas for this are endless. If you're a parent and you do lots of fall activities with your kids, like apple picking and pumpkin carving, you know, if you spend time out with the, you know, raking the leaves and taking pictures of them in all these different settings, you could end up creating the perfect album for displaying those photos. You could just print them out, put them onto the pages that I'll be adding in, and you have a perfect way to keep those photos displayed. If you're a writer or if you journal, you can, I'm going to have a journal aspect to this, and so this could be a really nice way to display a journal. If you're an artist and you like to art journal, you can have all the room, and so, you know, really just make it your own. We can put pockets in here. We can do lots of things, you know, whatever, you know, the only limitation is your imagination. So now that the outside is done, let's get started on the inside. Okay, the one thing I know is that my favorite picture out of the entire kit, and I love the whole kit. Lisa, the owner of the Gingerbread Prints, always does such an amazing job with her creations. But I just love this picture, and I know that I want it to be prominently displayed as like the back of the inside part of this album. And so I went ahead and cut off the white edges, leaving a little bit there. Now I'm going to run some tea dye distress ink along the edges. Again, just to add another dimension of color, help add that, that little detail. I should also note that these images and the paper that we used on the outside of the journal, I print all of that out on 65-pound white cardstock. That seems like a good weight. It's not too light. But when I print out my journal pages for the journal that I'll put on the inside of this, I'm going to do those on regular printer paper. And what I usually do is print out one page, and then I'll put it back into the printer and print out the other side on there, so that that way all you have to do is fold that, create a signature, fold it in half, and you have all your pages. So but yeah, these images here I do on the 65-pound. And because they also help just, add to the overall structure of the journal when they're like a full size sheet like this. There, that looks good. I'm not even gonna like run the knife around the edges of this one because I think just adding that tea dye was perfect. So now go ahead and get that in place, and then I will likely go ahead and take, I'll probably use more tea dye this time and just go around the edges to get those covered as well. I'll show you what it looks like once I'm done. Okay, so that image is on the back, adhered down with the double-sided tape and some glue. And then also I put some tea dye stain ink around the outside edges to blend in the background, and I think it looks absolutely fabulous. I'm just so, as I mentioned earlier, I'm just so drawn to this picture. Lisa just did an amazing job with this this entire journal kit. I love it, and so that's now in place. Can also then take the tea dye and run it along the inside of the journal. That would look nice. And then we can get on to deciding how we want to structure the inside. As I mentioned earlier, I'm thinking about on one side doing a having a some pages that are going to be part of a journal that you could write in. I'm also thinking about having some like accordion panes that flip up and down or side to side. So I'm going to decide, I know I'll do one on one side, one on the other. And that's the reason why when you are building the structure of the album, I went with a 1.5 inch to allow for the space of building in all those different like folded pieces of cardboard and the paper. So that will ensure that you have enough space. And also then if you want to expand it and add in like some pockets, which we might have some pockets in here too. I'm kind of with this one, I knew the structure, which we now have done. And then for the inside, I'm really going to just use my intuition and take it step by step and see what I feel like adding where. So let's get started with the inside.